So with the arrival of AI into the world of image generation, a key question has to be asked. What counts as art? In this video, I'm going to be making the canvas, designing and fixing the hanging system, and then also doing the painting itself. And you'll get to see everything that I do in the order that I do it, right at the beginning to right through to the end when there's a finished artwork. As an artist, I've been working for about 25 years, but recently something's happened to the environment that I work in and that we all live in that I want to address. And so you'll be hearing me talk about my thoughts on this throughout the video. So going back to that question you heard at the start of the video, what counts as art? Does AI art have the same status or value as art produced by human artists? Is there a difference between AI art and human art? What does art even mean anymore? It feels inevitable that in some near future we won't be able to tell the difference between human-made art and AI-made art. To me, this is a terrifying prospect, and I don't want to sleepwalk into this dystopia without at least attempting to challenge this threat to something I hold so dear. So the challenge I'm setting myself is to gain an understanding and appreciation of art, and by doing so elevate art beyond the capabilities of AI. This is by no means a trivial endeavour. In the past, there have been many ways that art has been considered, with many themes and ideas discussed. Broadly speaking, it could be said that these considerations fall into three main categories. The artist's role as one, with themes such as conception and execution explored. Then there is the work of art itself as another. And finally, there is the connection that both artist and artwork have with a spectator. But to gain the understanding and appreciation I'm seeking, it is going to be necessary to go deeper than these three categories. We are going to have to look at specific ideas of art. So let's list some of these. Art can be said to be subjective, with beauty or art being in the eye of the beholder. Art can also, and has been for centuries, judged on the quality of beauty it brings to the world. In a different vein, art can be seen in connection to nature and how closely it imitates or replicates it. Then again, sometimes art is said to be symbolic and a mechanism for delving into the unconscious. There is also the line between artist and spectator through the artwork, which is often seen as vital. The sense of communing or sharing emotional connection is often mentioned. Lastly, for the moment, some believe that art shows the depth and breadth of humanity. Unfortunately, I think it can be easily argued that AI-produced art can pretty much score highly on all these ideas. Let's face it, AI art can arouse obviously false, but nevertheless convincing displays of subjective appeal, beauty, nature, symbolism, and emotional connection. It can also conjure vistas that approximate the breadth and depth of humanity. It is that powerful a nemesis. Hopefully my aim is clear. I am deliberately considering the most potent AI productions and how the development of AI might evolve to create truly remarkable images. There is no point in my challenge being meek and underestimating the potential of AI. I have to conceive of it in its most powerful form if I am to rise to the challenge and set forth a significant understanding and appreciation of art, the qualities of which AI can never meet. So, having eliminated 6 contenders already as being too weak to repel the advance of AI, let us turn afresh to some more. Sometimes art is said to defy interpretation as it resists easy understanding. Unfortunately, AI art can all too easily produce this quality in its images. Many have proclaimed that a work of art can cultivate a unique experience where one wants to spend time with it. Again, AI art can be said to produce this quality in its images. AI art can be captivating. Perhaps going deeper, some philosophers believe that art can change the spectator due to their encounter or experience with an artwork. This one might be slightly more of a task for AI, but essentially I would say it can indeed replicate even this aspect, where a spectator could conceivably be changed by their experience of seeing an AI artwork. This one greatly pains me, as did the previous one. Deeper still, the question of otherness comes to mind when considering artworks, as they provoke, enchant, and encourage us to explore places we ourselves never imagined. The artist can summon wonderment beyond our individual imagination. But guess what? So too can AI. When one can generate a lobster juggling diamonds on a lavender and honey ice cream cloud, then invariably a sense of otherness is easily ticked off and attained by the AI artwork. Lastly, in this section, let us consider infinity when contemplating human creativity. The creative force in humans knows no bounds and is inherently infinite. There is always latent potential for something new to be created by just one human artist, let alone the thousands or millions worldwide now and in the future who call themselves artists. But yes, yet again, AI art can also fulfill this requirement. A sense of infinity can also be ticked off by AI because it can go on producing ad nauseum, and just like human artists, never reach the end of its creativity. Well, that finishes off another 5 contenders. Is there anything else about art that we can bring to bear? Or is human-made art to be vanquished, slain by the power of AI? Let's regroup and take another look. Working with materials is often a large part of the artist's craft and contribution to the work of art they create. The making of art is sometimes a matter of choices, with each decision splintering outwards to more choices. Art is often seen as the expression of the artist. Possibly there is something here in materials, choices, and expression. The artist's control of their materials is of paramount importance. The understanding that the artist has of their materials is critical to their work. Knowing which paints to use, what canvas works best, how to make the paint connect with the canvas, brushing, dripping, throwing or pouring, knowing how the paint might dry and change when moving from wet to dry. There are 1,000 aspects regarding material usage and knowledge that the artist collects en route to their craft. I use the word craft here specifically because understanding materials is the craft side of being an artist, and it is present in any art form or indeed any craft. What makes something art as opposed to craft happens later on, beyond the subject of materials. For the moment, though, let's stick with materials for a little while longer. AI art doesn't have materials, just screens at present. So what gets presented is a two-dimensional image. It's flat and lands only on a screen. This is different to the majority of human-made art. Even though humans make visual art that is in 2 dimensions, the creation occurs in 3 dimensions. If this line of thought has legs though, the downfall might come when AI develops its own legs and arms. Could a robot learn about their use of materials in the same way as a human over years of dedication to their art? This might be a problem for the future if AI in the form of robots start to paint artworks in 3-dimensional space. A different perspective on materials arrives if the spectator is in direct sight of the original work itself rather than just a reproduction. Seeing the artwork in 3 dimensions might enable a fuller picture to evolve, where human art can be discerned from AI art. In this case, though, there are consequences for art produced on screens by humans, because their expression, materials and choices will be limited by the 2-dimensionality of the work. On its own, the possibilities of materials appears to be open to problems. Mostly as a defining characteristic, it could only really get us to the level of craft rather than art. Then there is the problem of robots taking up brushes and painting canvases, and also the potential scope limiting of what counts as art if screen artworks get disqualified. Perhaps we should move on to the next possibility: choices. When creating art, the artist has to make choices. Colour choices, technique choices, composition choices, the list goes on. Choices start to become the bedrock of the artistic process, alongside the craft of material usage. And there is something that feels human only when thinking about the choices taken when creating art. It just feels kind of right that only humans can make artistic choices. However, it's not as simple as that, because it can be argued that AI makes choices when producing their images or artworks. The critical difference, however, comes when we consider what underpins the choices. For AI, the underpinning takes the form of computational analysis to deliver the best execution and result to the task. For humans, it is very different. For humans, the underpinning of choices is driven by what is personal to the artist. The human artist brings forward everything that they have learned, experienced, lived, and valued throughout their life. And often what gets brought forward cannot be articulated or made verbally present because, 1, this is not how the artist communicates in the world. Instead of putting down words, they create visual art. And 2, the learning, experience and values become subsumed within the artist to such an extent that they no longer can be separated into individual components. The big question, though, is whether such human choices can be discerned by spectators in a different way to the choices made by AI producing an artwork. And here is where we get to the key issue, because it appears that it is simply not enough to focus on choices on their own. AI can trick the spectator on this criterion of choices, even if choices do provide a better understanding of what is at stake when considering what counts as art. So to avoid the problem of being presented with a synthetic version of art and potentially mistaking it for something created by a human, we need to introduce the final characteristic, expression, to help progress our understanding. Let's think about how the role of a conductor works in an orchestra. For me, very basically, the role of a conductor is to ensure that the performance of the composer's score becomes something greater than a recital of the musical notes written down. Expression choices are made by the conductor as they weave the sound together from the multiplicity of orchestral performers. This is just like when an artist uses their materials and makes unique choices as to how they paint their artwork. They go beyond the mechanics of materials and choices. They go into new territory. With expression, they demonstrate their control of their medium, whilst at the same time pushing the limits of where that medium can go. This happens, pushing the limits, because each artist's expression is different from another's. If any expression looks the same as someone else's, then it is no longer expression, but rather duplication, which of course would position it into the realm of something other than art and more akin to something generated, even something artificial. So with expression, we can see the need for boldness on the part of the artist. Artworks need to be unique and push at the limits of where art can go and take us. Once again, though, we are met with our standard obstacle. Some AI art can be said to deliver in the same way, and in this case, be bold. Rather frustratingly, on their own, each of materials, choices and expression don't seem able to solve the AI artwork problem and provide a key characteristic of human-made art. However, and this is a big however, I think it is safe to say that if we consider materials, choices and expression together when looking at any artwork, then we should be equipped to tell if a work of art is AI or human-made. To do this, though, we might need to make a shift in ourselves. Materials, choices and expression need to be valued. These are the arenas where the artist puts forward their humanity for us to see, if we are able to open our eyes. Combined together, these three characteristics, materials, choices and expression, if we look closely enough, can enable us to tell the difference between art and non-art, or between human-made art and plain old AI images. Subjective appeal, beauty, nature, symbolism, emotional connection, and even the depth and breadth of humanity can be imitated by AI. And equally, AI can produce images that defy interpretation, offer a unique experience, present otherness or a sense of infinity, and even potentially change the spectator. Its power to synthetically manufacture images that adopt characteristics traditionally associated with our understanding of art is pretty scary. However, I do believe that AI can fall short of swamping our understanding of art if we look to materials, choices and expression handled and made by the artist. Between these three characteristics lies a realm where only human-made art can exist if we as spectators can learn to appreciate and value these characteristics. Artists will continue to create artworks, just as AI will continue to produce images. It is up to us to place our value upon each of them and not to conflate them. Because if we cannot work out what counts as art, then we risk losing everything that art can bring to us. And ultimately, I believe this means we risk losing a major part of our own humanity. But let me know what you think in the comments below.